Hey, what's going on, guys? Earlier today, Dana White did a couple interviews where he discussed a slew of different topics, one being Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And if you saw, this was reported on, but if you actually went and watched the interview, Dana White started off saying something, then he kind of changed his tune a little bit and said something different. And when he changed his tune, that's what actually got reported by MMA media. So if you didn't watch the actual interview, you kind of missed this little subtlety of what Dana White started to say. And I want to cover that in this video along with a couple other topics that he discusses. But then he also does another interview, which even right now it has less than 200 views on YouTube, where he hints at potentially announcing the UFC 300 main event. And literally this got no publicity at all. I want to be very clear, this is super speculative, but we're going to look at that in this video as well. But I just want to discuss again Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And I know some of you guys may get tired about hearing me talk about this, but this is something I've been very adamant about for over a year now. It was announced a year ago in the beginning of February, tail end of January. And I've been adamant that I did not think Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler was ever going to happen. And I've done so many different videos. But again, we have some more evidence from UFC president Dana White himself. Basically publicly admitting, it may never happen. It may not even happen this year, but we're going to listen to it. You guys can decide for yourself. Let's start off right away with the Pat McAfee interview. And both of the interviews that we're going to watch in this video, I will link down in the description. But I want to start off with something kind of UFC related. He talks about Mexican Independence Day and the card he's going to do at the Sphere. I want to listen to a couple seconds of this because I just think it has a little bit of a connection to UFC 300 recently.
Independence Day, and I'm going to put on the greatest live event anybody's ever seen, and it's going to be this huge love letter to all of combat and combat sports throughout the history of Mexico.
So there you go. He's hyping it up. The Sphere card, you guys heard about it multiple times at this point. But the reason I wanted to point this out is because Dana White keeps hyping this up, and he's kind of setting these grand expectations, and it's never going to live up to it. It's exactly what he did with UFC 300. Every fight from the very first prelim, which we're going to talk about in this video as well, which with something that he said in the other interview. But he's already hyping this up, and he was asked in this interview, I'm not even going to show you it, and he was also asked in the other interview, which I'm not even going to show you, like, what exactly are your plans? And Dana White could never really elaborate on what his plans were that was going to make this fight card in the Sphere so special. Now, this next clip I just kind of thought was funny, and bear with me as I'm skimming through this because this is a 3.5-hour podcast. They didn't clip it out, so it's like hard to kind of skim through here and click. But this next part I thought was rather funny. He's asked about power slap, and this is another topic I want to touch on in this video. Dana White's relationship with MMA media and just media in general. And this is the type of questions that Dana White loves. Listen to this.
That I still love to do. I do the fun stuff.
Okay, before a couple UFC questions, and how's slap? We still slapping?
Slapping.
We still slapping. Oh, the hard-hitting questions. And I understand this is just a podcast appearance, so I'm not trying to be too hard. But this is what Dana White enjoys. And listen to this. I just thought this was hilarious, so I wanted to cover it a little bit.
This Friday, man. Friday. It's our first time out of the Apex.
First time. He's taking power slap out of the Apex. Meanwhile, we got every fight card in the Apex right now. Every fight night card.
Sold out at Durango Station, and yeah.
You sold out what is Durango?
No, we're over there in their ballroom. So we did VIP packages. $300,000 gate this weekend for this.
$300,000 gate. We did a VIP packages. Who are these people? I'd like to slap them. 300,000 people are buying. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe it for 1 second. All right, let's move on. Let's get to the part where he's asked about Conor McGregor 2 different times in this interview. This is the first time. And this was very, very telling the way Dana White reacts to this. And I just, it's crazy because listen to what he starts saying in the very beginning of this. When he's first asked here, listen to what he starts saying, and then he kind of changes his tune a little bit. I want you to listen very carefully.
Max Holloway fought everybody.
So I started a little bit before because the video is so long, it's hard to click in a very specific spot. But in a couple seconds, he'll get asked about when is Conor McGregor fighting. And listen to his initial words right as he starts to talk about it. Listen to what he says.
Defended against everybody and, still continues to be one of the best in the world.
Yeah, so just, I'm a mark. Conor McGregor's fighting Chandler.
Conor McGregor's fighting Chandler. Look at Dana White's face. I don't want to be a body language expert. Look at his face. He's pissed off. He didn't want to be asked about that. But listen to what he starts to say here. I'm sorry that I keep pausing it, but I want to harp on this. Listen to what he starts to say. And I'll pause it right after he says it.
Eventually, yeah.
First off, eventually, but listen.
Hopefully this year.
No, I heard.
Hopefully this year. Hopefully this year. That's what I wanted to hone in on. Because that's not what got reported. He says something else in a minute. That's not what got reported. Hopefully this year. Hopefully this year. People were telling me, Joey, you were wrong. They're fighting on June 29th. Hopefully, now it's hopefully this year. But listen as he continues to answer. Hold on, that's the other interview. I accidentally skimmed over, but listen to this.
I heard we got a date. We didn't have a date. Chandler's pushing for a date. People are pushing for a date. Conor said he knows a date. Everybody has a date.
This is the most infuriating way to ask a question I've ever heard in my entire life, by the way. It's crazy.
You're the guy that got to set the date. You should say the date.
There is no date.
Come on.
There's no date. You hear that, Chandler? You hear that? Download Creed's entire album for offline listening on Spotify, Chandler. Listen to One Last Breath. I understand you're 6 feet from the edge right now. There is no date.
I'm hoping for the fall. We get it done in the fall.
I'm hoping that we get it done in the fall.
Okay, so is that for...
When are you playing blackjack with me?
As soon as
I
possible.
thought we were playing.
Dude, my
What are you
life.
doing Friday night?
Playing blackjack with you, dude.
Boom.
So Friday night after Power Slap.
I wanted to play that. Look how Dana White changes the topic. Look, they start talking about Conor. He does not want to talk about it. He's clearly pissed off. I have an entire theory of what's going on with Conor McGregor. I'll touch on it a little bit when we look at the second clip about Conor. But when we gamble, when we're going to gamble together, changes the topic immediately. But I'm hoping for it to happen this fall. You know what? I had to bring this up. Let's switch. Let's change gears for a second here. Let's change gears. I don't want to go to that. I want to go to this. This is an interview from Michael Chandler from January 5th, 2024. Let's listen to what Chandler had to say on January 5th, 2024. Just for a good laugh here.
For that, and when the...
By the way, here he was asked about what does June 29th mean to you? Is that official? And he talks about the UFC hasn't announced it yet, but it's actually happening on June 29th. Listen to this.
UFC comes out with it, but obviously my team has been in touch with the UFC, and yeah, June 29th is what I'm preparing for. I'm leaving my family here.
He's leaving his family for a mythical fight because Conor McGregor tweeted out something. Posted a Twitter video of him drinking wine, probably coked out of his mind. Just got done looking at his own Twitter likes. And Chandler is leaving his family to prepare to make 185 pounds. This is crazy. Let's go back and listen to that one more time.
Octagon, but before that, and when the UFC comes out with it, but obviously my team has been in touch with the UFC, and yeah, June 29th is what I'm preparing for. I'm leaving my family here in the next couple weeks to head down to Florida to get into fight camp, the fight camp that has been looming now for a year. And yeah, June 29th, we take this dude's head off.
This dude is leaving his wife and kids. Conor McGregor has played Michael Chandler. He said this fight camp's been looming for a year. Get ready for it to loom for another year or two, Michael Chandler. All right, get ready for it to loom another year or two. And let's take a look at one more clip. And I broke this down live when it happened. If you've been following the channel, if you've been subscribed to the channel, I broke this down live when it happened. But let's listen to one more clip from Chandler. You know, let's really... And first off, you know, I never miss an opportunity. Look at Brett Okamoto's camera quality here. Look at his camera quality. His mic quality shit too. ESPN MMA, owned by Disney. Owned by Disney. They can't get this man more than something that's worth 480p. You can't get him a decent camera. Listen to what Brett Okamoto asked here. I might have started it a little bit late, but he asked Chandler, how confident are you that it happens June 29th? Listen to this.
June 29th.
I have 100% confidence that I'm fighting Conor McGregor June 29th. Now, with that being
100% confidence that it's happening June 29th. 100% confidence it's happening June 29th. Can you believe that? Can you believe That is what Chandler is saying. You heard what Dana said. I'm hopeful that it happens this year. I'm hopeful that it'll happen this fall. So it's definitely not happening this summer, according to Dana, unless Dana's playing coy here and then all of a sudden it's going to be announced for UFC 300. But I highly doubt that. I mean, that would be completely out of left field. I think that's a very, very unlikely, probably less than 1% chance that happens. Now, before we look at the next Conor McGregor clip, I just want to touch on Dana White's relationship with the media, because he says something very telling here, and I just, think it's interesting to point out. Listen to this.
I agree with him.
So they were asked about like Sean Strickland and the media's reaction, but that's not what we're gonna touch on here. But listen to what he has to say about the MMA media.
But he's allowed to say what he wants.
Your relationship though with the media and the way you guys have handled everything. So just like, this is how we're doing it. Do not care. Keep it moving. Feels like you and the media are a better relationship now.
I wouldn't say
Huh?
that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that.
Coming together.
Uncle Dana?
No. Listen, you know what? If you notice, I really haven't been doing any media. I do podcasts, man. I'll do podcasts. I'll come hang with you. Lots of people. Oh, sorry.
So there you go. I'll go do podcasts. I'll come hang out with you. And the reason I wanted to harp on this is because, one, I had to suffer through this 20-minute interview. This is almost a topic for a whole nother video. But Dana White, now that he's built the UFC to such a high standard in such a place that the brand is so valuable, he doesn't need the media as much anymore. And he's slowly trying to replace legitimate media, which I'm always one complaining about the MMA media in general. But Dana's trying to replace it with the Nelk Boys, with Nina Drama, with all these kind of influencers, and use them as means to promote to their target audience, rather than having any MMA media who, even though they don't, but he doesn't want to risk them asking him any difficult questions or confronting him on any difficult topics. And then he goes on a little bit more and talks about the MMA media a little bit more. I just want to show you one more thing about the MMA media before we look at the next Conor McGregor thing. But he touches on it a little bit more here in a second, right here. And I just wanted to call this out because this is complete horseshit, even coming from someone who hates MMA media. Listen,
It does feel like it. We have differences. We are going to disagree, but it
100%.
feels like...
And I have aligned myself with people that I want to be with.
he's talking about the Nelk Boys. He's talking about Nina Drama probably blowing out her back, him and Hunter Campbell. But I've aligned myself with people I want to be with. And then listen to what he says here.
People that I want to sit down and have conversations with. People that I want to promote this with. People that I want to promote that. I don't care if a media member ever shows up to any of my events ever again.
So there you go. He says he doesn't care if any media members ever show up at his events ever again. I want to touch on this for two different reasons. One, I know it's kind of the popular thing nowadays to hate on MMA media and hate on media in general. And I hate on it myself, to be quite honest. I think it's despicable for opposite reasons of Dana White. But the UFC would not exist without media. A lot of these guys, whether you like them or not, the UFC was built obviously by Dana. Dana deserves a lot of credit for that. But without media and fans becoming media and being willing to cover the sport would not be where it is today. So for Dana to say, oh, I don't care if any media members ever come, is just completely despicable because they also helped build the UFC. We can debate to what percentage that is, but the MMA media helped build the UFC. And if you don't believe that, Dana's paying media members to come to his Power Slap events because they got kicked off TBS because they don't have good ratings. Now they're on Rumble, exclusively live and free on Rumble, where absolutely nobody goes and watches. And he's paying influencers and other media members, some that work for actual MMA websites, to cover Power Slap as a favor to him. So media obviously matters, but he's to a point where the UFC's worth so much and the brand is worth so much and his social media is worth so much, he's kind of less inclined to care about legitimate MMA media because he believes he can replace it with influencer media, which that yet remains to be seen. We'll see about that, but I just thought that was interesting to leave in here. And then he's asked one more time about Conor McGregor. He's asked about Conor McGregor, and he's asked about, something along the lines of who has the best walkout. And Dana White says Conor McGregor. They ask him again, when is Conor McGregor fighting, and watch his reaction to this.
When we started this thing, the guy, Wolverine, who's looked at the best in the world right now.
So I started a little bit early again, because again, it's hard to kind of skim around a 3 hour and 28 minute YouTube video. He's hyping up Power Slap, Wolverine, all that stuff. He seems more passionate about Power Slap nowadays than he is about the UFC. But listen to what he gets into here in a second.
You know, this guy's paid off his house, paid off his cars. I mean, these guys were
It's a
doing
professional
this
sport.
They were doing it for free.
Yeah.
Now they're making real money, and you know, it's
They were slapping each other for free. Now they're making $2,500.
changed a lot of these guys' lives.
Who has the greatest UFC walkout of all time?
McGregor,
Yeah, it's got to be.
without a doubt.
Sinead O'Connor.
And when's he fighting?
100%.
With Sinead live?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when's he fighting?
What's the date?
Just laugh it off. Look at that shit-eating grin. Look at that shit-eating grin on Dana's face. When's he fighting, Dana? When's he fighting? I wish they would ask him, what is the holdup? What is the holdup?
A date on that? Can we see it again? Love to see it again sometime.
Hey, Chandler, obviously we know Chandler.
Yep.
I'm excited for the build up to that, how that's going to go. I mean, it's obviously
too.
already been happening.
Me too.
Do you kind of try to...
And then they don't even really go into any detail at all. You see Dana doesn't want to talk about it. And they pick up on that. You know, this is kind of a kind of casual appearance. They're not going to ask him any difficult questions. They can tell Dana doesn't want to talk about it, so they're going to move on. And they say, oh, yeah, we know Chandler. Yeah, you know Chandler. He's been sniffing Conor McGregor's asshole for the last 2 years. How could you not know Chandler at this point? So the other thing I want to take a look at, and this is where Dana White talks a little bit about UFC 300, and he also talks about kind of hinting at a UFC 300 announcement. And again, this is pure speculation, but I've seen people talking about how Dana White's going to be at a UFC, or not a UFC, a Super Bowl commercial. And there's some people speculate maybe he'll announce the UFC 300 main event during a Super Bowl commercial. And I don't think that's true, but I got to thinking maybe something similar to that could happen this weekend. And he kind of gets at that. But we're going to check that out in 1 second. But the first thing I want to check out is he talks about the bout order of UFC 300. And this is kind of the only thing that got reported on from this interview. This interview right now has 218 views. When I initially brought this up, you know, like 30 minutes ago, it had like 145 views. So that's how little views this has. There's not a whole lot of substance, but there's a couple little hints in here. But let's listen to him talking about the bout order of UFC 300.
We're opening the card. The first prelim of the night is Garbrandt and Figueiredo. I mean, what does that tell you?
The first prelim of the night is Garbrandt versus Figueiredo. Now, there's been some reporting on this that I think could be misreported. I'm wondering if this is going to be the first televised prelim, or is it going to be the early prelim? If it is the very, very first prelim, the only reason they're doing this is so Dana can say, oh, we got two former champions opening up the card. That's how stacked this card is. Because that's definitely out of order. If you're going on what fights deserve to be where, that's way out of order. You know, you should have Andrade versus Rodriguez opening up the early prelims, but maybe that's what he means. And let's listen to one more thing that he says here.
That's incredible, obviously, for sure. You guys are, doing some events around here this week as well. You got the Power Slap going on. You've
Everyone knows to talk to him about Power Slap, but I just thought this was humorous here.
got, a lot. You're trying to.
He's got his Power Slap cup. He's got his Power Slap cup. I'm legit dying here. He holds it up proudly. He's like, yeah, here's my Power Slap cup right here. Look at
Build. There you go. The cup. There, perfect. I guess this.
Look, we can't see it, but I guarantee there's a shit-eating grin underneath this cup right here. There's definitely a shit-eating grin. All right, now here's where he kind of hints at UFC 300 a little bit. And kind of we're going to get into my theory about what's going on. Everyone's wondering, why haven't we got an announcement yet? Listen to this right here. He's talking about kind of I think the question was, what do you do for fun or something dumb like that. But it doesn't matter what the question was. Listen to the answer.
Stuff I love. Getting up every day and battling. I love the problem. Like UFC 300. We're trying to get this thing done.
UFC 300, we're trying to get this thing done.
It's almost like I thrive in chaos. And if there isn't chaos, I'll create it.
Okay, so we're trying to get this thing done. My theory is, and I've made a video about this, whether I'm right about what the main event may or may not be, I personally believe the main event will be Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title. I believe they're working on a new contract for du Plessis. I 100% believe that. I think that's what's going on behind the scenes. But I do think the UFC has potential other plans in case that does not pan out. But I wanted to bring that up right there because he says we're working on it. There's a reason the UFC hasn't announced it yet. I mean, we're 2 months out from UFC 300 and he still hasn't announced the main event. That is kind of weird, but I believe, even if I'm wrong about what fight it is, they are working on a contract with a specific fighter for the main event. And I believe specifically, in my beliefs, it is du Plessis. He's working on a new contract now that he's won the belt, beat Sean Strickland. And I think that's what's going on behind the scenes. But the next thing I want to take a look at, and the last thing I want to take a look at, is something that kind of was like, I had to go back and watch it a couple of times because I'm like, wait a second, am I really picking up what I think I'm picking up right here? And this is pure speculation. I could be dead wrong on this, but I thought it was worth noting in a video, and I thought this was the perfect video. We're going to discuss it here. He's asked if he's going to the Super Bowl, and listen to his answer here.
But are you going to the game on Sunday?
No, I'm staying home.
But listen to this part. Listen to this part. And this is where I start to wonder, because Dana White's going to be in a Super Bowl commercial this week, and people are saying maybe he's going to announce the UFC 300 main event there.
Smart.
I have to run in the first quarter and film something and then go back to my house.
What could he possibly be going to film in the middle of the first quarter? What could he be going to film?
But, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Let's listen to that one more time, because I had to listen to it a couple times to really kind of wrap my head around it. And this could be nothing. This could be completely nothing. Maybe you guys will have to let me know down in the comments, do you think this is something? But I'm going to tell you my theory here in a second, but let's listen to it one more time.
Game on Sunday?
No, I'm staying home.
Smart.
I have to run in the first quarter and film something and then go back to my house. But, you got to do what you got to do.
So he's running to film something in the first quarter. Now, my theory behind this is, I believe, and I've talked about this periodically throughout the channel and throughout kind of the UFC 300 debacle in general, the UFC, the reason these announcements aren't strategically planned and the usual, like when Dana White's kind of talked about, I'll have something for you tomorrow, and then sometimes it doesn't happen, and then sometimes when he does announce something, it's not like a massive fight. It's because, and a lot of the times when we do get the big announcements, they're never scheduled. They're just random. Sometimes we'll get a random big fight announcement at 1 a.m. Maybe it's obviously a little bit earlier in Las Vegas. The reason that happens is because the UFC, particularly with these big fights, they like to make sure they're very close to being official before they announce them, and they announce them right away. As soon as they're sure that's the direction they're going in, Dana White likes to announce it, because he doesn't want it getting leaked. You have managers, you have fighters, you have teammates of those fighters, and the news tends to get leaked out. So the UFC likes to kind of have a stranglehold on that news. So as soon as they get a deal done, even if it's not necessarily signed, we've seen the UFC will announce fights long before they're signed. They like to go ahead and announce it right away. As soon as they kind of have verbal agreements in place, or they're pretty sure it's going to happen, they like to go and announce it. I wonder if what the UFC is planning to do, if Dana White is thinking, okay, it's Wednesday now, I plan on having a deal in place for the UFC 300 main event. Maybe right now they're negotiating with Duplessis, like my theory is, but they have a couple other options they may go with. There's no doubt in my mind they have a couple backup plans, a couple contingency plans. So even like Dricus and his team aren't going to leak out that they're fighting, because they're not definitely fighting yet. I think Dana White's plan is to get a deal in place by Sunday, by Super Bowl Sunday. I think he's going to the Apex, the studio, to record the main event announcement. And soon after the not the UFC 300, soon after the commercial that Dana White's in appears on the Super Bowl, a lot of people are going to go look him up and look up his social media after he's on a commercial, and he's going to drop the news right then and there. So I think what most likely is going to happen during the Super Bowl, Dana White, soon before that, maybe a day before that, maybe 2 days before that, maybe that very day, he's going to finalize what the main event's going to be. I think during the Super Bowl, he's going to run out and film his little, breaking news. And, he could do it in the war room. He could do it, at the little, that studio where he always has like the yellow breaking news thumbnail where he announces the fights. He records him announcing the main event, and then he drops it right after the Super Bowl commercial. But the reason, you're probably thinking, he could do this well in advance. He doesn't want to have all this nailed down because it's still kind of a fluid situation, and he doesn't want it to leak out. Once it's concrete, once Dricus signs, once Adesanya signs, and again, I'm using them as an example. It could be any fighters. Could be maybe some Aspinall versus Gane, or Aspinall versus Alex Pereira. It could be something along those lines, but I believe it will be Duplessis versus Adesanya. He doesn't want it to leak out. So he wants to announce it at the optimal time. He's been milking social media and the kind of obsession the fans have had with UFC 300. And I think he plans on announcing something on his social media right after his Super Bowl commercial airs, which I believe he's in like a Bud Light commercial. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I think he's going to use that time. And he knows everyone's going to be wanting to see, okay, we're going to get a 300 announcement, and he's going to announce it on that day. He's not going to pay for a commercial. Super Bowl commercials are super expensive. He's going to use that publicity he gets from being in the commercial. He's going to announce it on his social media during Super Bowl Sunday, and he's going to hope, okay, this is going to propel the event into even bigger heights and help generate even more hype for the card. We're going to announce the main event on Sunday. That's my thoughts behind it. That's what I think happens. But we got a lot of interesting things out of Dana White today. One being something I've known for a year, that Michael Chandler is wasting his entire career in his late 30s praying and hoping that he gets to step in the cage with Conor McGregor. He's planning on leaving his family for Conor McGregor for a mythical fight that may or may not even happen. And then on top of that, I do believe within the next 7 days, even if it doesn't happen this weekend, because again, this is highly speculative, I believe we will get a UFC 300 announcement soon for the main event. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.